This week on Snobs Movie Summer School, we're talking about suspension of disbelief. Now, what is suspension of disbelief? Suspension of disbelief is to allow oneself to believe that something is true, even when it seems impossible. Now, what got me thinking about this? So I went and saw the new Mission Impossible movie. If there's anything that should have any type of movie that should have suspension of disbelief, it's probably the Mission Impossible movies. It's right there in the title, Impossible. And, one of the things I absolutely love about those movies is that they really push the envelope. They really, with the stunts, with the storytelling, the action is just so prevalent and it is truly respected. And then I thought about, what is it about suspension of disbelief in movies that works but also doesn't work? Because there are times where we get to a point where, we just can't accept it. And I had talked about this a bit when I had done my Dead Reckoning review in comparison to the Fast movies. And we're going to kind of cover a few different things, and they're going to, we're going to get into it a little bit. But my thing about suspension of disbelief is I believe that it is okay to allow yourself to suspend that disbelief and get into the movie as long as it's within the vein of who the characters in the world that have been set up are. So anytime the physics that you set up for me, I can watch a movie called Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where it's completely zany and anything is possible. Truly anything is possible. And that's fine by me. But if you added something in there that does not work, and you ask me to suspend my disbelief that shouldn't work in this realm, and what wouldn't work in something like that? But it's just, anything could not work in something like that if you make it too serious. You push, you go too far with things, and you make it too violent. The violence is supposed to be absurd, it's supposed to be funny, but if you make it when they're doing the even when they're doing the was it the vat of, it's not juice, I forget what they called it in the movie, but the spray that they had, and they put the shoe in, and that's really violent, that's really dark, but they've been setting up the joke the whole time. And even when you get to that dark moment, that is the tension buildup. So it's still within the realm of disbelief that you can suspend it and be fine. Now, what do I mean? Let's take it to a different point of view. So, if you watch Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movie, nothing he does fits outside the realm of the physics they built within that movie from beginning to end, because he still is doing his stunts. He's still doing all of these things. And it all sort of fits. And I think that's what's important to him when he makes these movies, is that it fits and it's believable. It's believable because he's doing it, because it's being worked on, because it's being planned. Everything is practical that can be practical. And if it's visual effects, it's not taking away from the believability factor. But then you go over to something like the Fast X franchise, and they've pushed too far. Now you are expecting us to suspend this disbelief, but you've taken us from DVD stealing race car drivers to basically godlike superheroes. And now in this last one, you're supposed to put them in real danger. No one believes that. They've been in real danger the whole time and nobody dies. So you've pushed us past the brink of, being able to suspend that. So that's what I mean when I say, what is suspension of disbelief? When does it work? When doesn't work? And now, if you have multiple movies in franchise, look at the Friday the 13th movies, you could work. You could suspend that disbelief even up to where he wasn't actually in New York City. You could even do that. But then you got to Jason Goes to Hell, and you're like, what is this? We already died. We don't need another death. And what's the heart eating? It doesn't make sense. I'm out. And then once you're out, You lose people. It's hard to get them back to where you want to be. And that's even within a 2-hour movie. It's within a franchise. It's within a trilogy, a series, whatever. Once you lose them, they're out. You're most likely not going to bring them back. And I think that's what happened with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We nuked the fridge. That should have never happened. Now I hear people say, like, I didn't mind to nuke the fridge. I didn't care. What was it that caused the issue? Why were the vines, him swinging from the vines, not able to believe? It's because everything shifted. If you watch all 3 of those movies before Kingdom and the Crystal Skull, everything that's happening is fantastical. It's whimsical. Would it most likely happen? You have voodoo. You have the Ark of the Covenant open up and melting faces. You have the Holy Grail aging people and causing earthquakes. You have things that are so far beyond belief that you can't help but suspend your disbelief to enjoy it. But it all makes sense because everything is grounded. Once that moment happened in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and you had the nuke the fridge moment, it wasn't fantastical. It was over the top. And it was no longer, you took the thing that wasn't grounded. You took the character that kept us grounded throughout the entire time, regardless of what he was doing or what he was going through. And now you made him do this over the top thing. And when that happened, nothing else was believable in it. So, and I think that bled over into this new one. Once it stopped being believable, we stopped caring. And now there's a lot of things wrong with Crystal Skull, but that was the biggest complaint, I think. Once you took the belief that this is a real deal thing, that's like clipping the wings from Superman. Like, I know he doesn't have wings, but calm down. But like, if you did something, now Superman's a character who can do anything. We are supposed to suspend disbelief all over the place. But where's the fun in that when it comes to Superman? So what do? You ground him. You make sure that even if he can do anything, he will force himself not to. And you make that character even more interesting. He's the character it's not. You have the yin to his yang, where you have Batman, a character who trains himself so he is capable of doing anything, but he still cannot do everything, but he pushes himself too far beyond the point. And so that's the duality that's going on. And then the believability factor is when we watch Batman, when he gets hurt and he's suffering, we believe it because this is a guy who pushes himself to the brink. This is a guy who is so intent and obsessed with what's going on. We believe he'll just heal himself. And then we see Superman and we know this guy can do whatever he wants, but we believe in him. We believe in who he is, and we believe in his ideals and his values and what he's bringing to the table, that we can suspend any disbelief. Like, that's why when he killed Zod, and I can forgive it because it still fits, because that's his first ever brush with having to kill somebody. And I think that is a good thing in movies, to actually kill like if you have a character who is refusing to kill, and Superman, who did not go through that trauma, should kill somebody especially another Kryptonian, to force him to make that decision. I will never do it again. Like, whereas Batman watched his parents die, he dealt with that trauma. Now I'm getting off the base of the suspension of disbelief, but that's what I'm saying is, like, we believe in him. So if he changes, if Superman can do anything, but if his character changes, that's when you're going to lose us. Now, Batman pushes himself to the brink. He's obsessed. He does everything. He can change his character. He can change how he does things. Like when he becomes a dad, he does this thing. It's when you start having him do the awkward things where it's like, I don't believe this. Yeah, the bat nipples. Don't believe it. I cannot suspend it. It's past it. So like, it's important when it comes to suspension of disbelief, to understand, like, it's very easy to fall out of, but as long as you keep it within the parameters of what your characters are capable of within the world that they've built, you cannot just take and turn make a hard left turn, and in a movie or in a TV show, and say, okay, this is how the world works now, with no explanation, we will not believe it. Jason Taylor's here. He says, "Hey Mick, just got home from the birthday. Thank you for joining in, guys." So that's my cover on suspension of disbelief. I will be again doing the video series for Snobs Film School, and that's kind of what these are based off of. So like I do these where we have small talks, and then I'll do more in depth there. And I am going to get more in depth with some clips and things like that, suspension of disbelief, and really get into, from the writer's perspective and from the filmmaker's perspective, how to stay in line with your character and your world that you're building. Whenever you're writing, you can change it however you want. You can make the world whatever it is, but make sure you stick to whatever it is. If unicorns exist in your world, that's fine. Even if they're brought to life within your story, that's fine too. But then they have to exist in your world. They can't be doing things, and that's your free pass to make anything happen. That's where suspension of disbelief goes away. And we'll get into an in-depth conversation about that with writing, things like that, directing. So that, if you guys are interested in that video series, like I said, that's going to be over on Patreon. Go check it out. But thank you for watching this. If you're watching this as a clip, or you're watching this or listening to it on the Scene Snobs podcast, we always appreciate it. But let's get into our next segment, which is, did